For today's Business Matters, the Department of Transportation is planning to supercharge the hiring of air traffic controllers to solve an ongoing staffing shortage. To attract new people to the profession, the FAA is increasing starting salaries by 30% for candidates who start at its academy in Oklahoma. The agency will also cut down its 8-step hiring process to 5 steps. The DOT expects this to speed up hiring by shaving more than 4 months off the process. The new hiring window launched yesterday and ends March 17th. The announcement comes as a string of aviation incidents has drawn more attention to air traffic control. And you can say goodbye to Skype. Microsoft confirmed on social media that it is shutting down the internet-based phone and video service in May. Skype's shutdown comes 14 years after Microsoft bought the service for $8.5 billion in cash. At the time, it was the company's largest acquisition. Skype's popularity rose during the COVID-19 pandemic, but it has faced increased competition in recent years from Zoom, for example, Google Meet, and Cisco WebEx. Microsoft has been investing heavily in its Teams software, which offers many of the same services. The company says Skype users' login information can be used on Teams' free tier in the coming days. National Intelligence Director Tulsi Gabbard says she has serious concerns with the British government. That's over reported demands for Apple to provide backdoor access to user data. In a letter to Congress this week, Gabbard said this would violate the rights of Americans using Apple's cloud storage. She also objected to the idea of a foreign government putting pressure on the American company. Apple said last week it would no longer offer advanced data security for British users. The Washington Post, citing anonymous sources, reported that British security officials signed an order demanding Apple to allow backdoor access to view fully encrypted material. British authorities have declined to comment on the alleged order. Meanwhile, the Internal Revenue Service has released its list of tax scams people should watch out for in 2025. Topping the list are phishing scams, where fraudsters pose as legitimate organizations in the tax and financial community. Unsolicited texts or emails are sent to lure unsuspecting victims into handing out their personal or financial information. Another growing concern involves incorrect tax information on social media. The IRS warns that this can mislead people into bogus tax avoidance strategies and sometimes even result in identity theft. While many of these scams occur throughout the year, they peak during filing season. Now, does the Chinese regime have your data? Republican and Democrat senators introduced a bill that would ban Chinese app DeepSeek on government devices. And TD's Washington correspondent Jack Bradley has the details.
A bipartisan group of senators are introducing a bill to ban Chinese AI platform DeepSeek on government devices over data privacy concerns. Now, the bill is introduced by Republican Senators Jon Husted and Pete Ricketts and Democratic Senator Jacky Rosen. A similar bill was introduced in the House earlier this month, also bipartisan. DeepSeek is similar to ChatGPT, but now even more popular with more downloads. But there's the concern that since DeepSeek is a Chinese company, user data would end up into the hands of the CCP. That's as China's national intelligence law requires all of its citizens and businesses to provide literally all data to authorities upon request. Now, it's the same reason TikTok received overwhelming bipartisan support to ban the app. And the CEO of Faroot Security said that DeepSeek is designed to send data to China Mobile, which is a company banned in the US. He also said that it creates a digital footprint on each user to track its users on other websites.
It gives the ability to potentially survey Americans on any other websites once they have visited a DeepSeek and start navigating to any other pages, such as maybe booking even a doctor's appointment, which is a very, very alarming development.
Senator Tom Cotton wants to take the ban a step further, calling for a government device ban on all AI tools owned by Chinese companies.
That data is forever, and it can be sensitive, and it can be used to blackmail or get leverage over a person.
Senator Cotton also elaborated about the censorship on Chinese apps like DeepSeek, that certain topics the Chinese Communist Party deems controversial are banned from the apps, even in the US.
Go on X, Go on Facebook, go on Snapchat. Compare what you can learn there about, say, Tiananmen Square or Taiwan or the Uyghurs or Tibet to what you can learn on TikTok, which is nothing. There are stories about this in the news recently because of the new DeepSeek AI search engine, about how to type in Tiananmen Square and it'll tell you that it can't say anything about that.
South Korea put a nationwide ban on DeepSeek earlier this month over data privacy concerns. We have Taiwan, Italy, and Australia banning the app from government devices, and several states in the U.S., including Texas, New York, Florida, and Virginia, have done the same. Reporting from Washington, D.C., Jack Bradley, NTD News.
And the U.S. trade deficit jumped by 26% in January, hitting a new record high of $153 billion. The Commerce Department says imports jumped by nearly $35 billion to more than $325 billion last month. Industrial goods imports accounted for the bulk of that growth. Trade deficits show the difference between the value of goods a nation imports and exports. Positive values indicate a nation is importing more than it exports. Last month's jump came ahead of President Trump's enactment of new tariffs on China and threats for other tariffs that could come in the coming months. 25% tariffs against Mexico and Canada are set to go into effect on March 4th. The IRS is alerting taxpayers to use the agency's Where's My Fund refund tool for the 2025 filing season. The tool tracks the status of your refund and confirms the returns have been received. Taxpayers who file electronically can usually check the status of a tax refund within 24 hours of filing. For paper filing, that period is about 4 weeks. The tool is accessible via the IRS To Go mobile app. People have to submit their Social Security or individual taxpayer ID number, filing status, and the exact amount of check refund status. Most refunds are issued within 21 calendar days. A $28 billion computer chip project in Ohio delayed again. Intel is supposed to open its factories this year, but the company told a local news outlet that the first facility is now expected to start operations in 2030 or 2031. Intel told the Columbus Dispatch that this was because of financial struggles and aligning chip production with market demand. The project is part of a larger effort to bring semiconductor manufacturing to the U.S. Intel has received more than $2 billion in funding from the Federal CHIPS Incentives Program. And first-time homebuyers could see some relief in the coming year. A new Reuters survey found that property market experts expect affordability to improve modestly. This number has gone up since the last survey. Now a majority, more than 60%, expect financial pressure to ease a bit. This is based on expectations that there will be more interest rate cuts and not from increased inventory. In fact, senior economists at BMO Capital Markets expect home prices to continue to rise, but he foresees that being offset by more moderate rates than in recent years. Investors and analysts say that Adidas needs to win more American shoppers from market leader Nike in order to continue its success this year. Here's more.
The German brand looks for new sources of growth beyond its Samba and Gazelle sneakers. There's uncertainty over whether consumer demand in China will recover, and it's prompted many brands, including in the luxury sector, to focus on US shoppers as a growth driver for 2025. In pursuit of this, Adidas recently partnered with LA brand Sporty & Rich for a collegiate Americana line, and also collaborated with US musician Pharrell Williams and 2 US athletes. CEO Bjorn Gulden has turned Adidas around since it cut ties with rapper Ye and scrapped the Yeezy sneaker line in 2022. And shares in Adidas have risen 160% since Gulden's appointment was announced the following month. Investors expect him to ensure Adidas keeps gaining market share from Nike, while also fending off newer sportswear brands like On Running and Hoka when it reports full-year results in March. Data showed Nike's share of the global sportswear market fell to 14.1% last year from 15.2% in 2023, while Adidas's market share increased to 8.9% from 8.2%, with other gainers including New Balance, On Running and Hoka. An analyst said Adidas's overall sales should keep growing by at least 10% annually, as long as Nike is struggling.
Hefty fines could be in store in the coming months for companies that have violated export restrictions. A former U.S. Commerce Department official says some major investigations that didn't get resolved last year are expected to wrap up this year. Under the Biden administration, Matthew Axelrod pushed for tougher fines against companies that violated export controls on China, Russia, and Iran. For example, Axelrod signed off a $300 million penalty against Seagate Technology for shipping millions of hard drives to China's Huawei. Axelrod would not identify which companies are still under scrutiny. Tesla has just started its approval journey to its robotaxi destination. California regulators confirmed the electric vehicle maker has applied for a permit that is typically associated with chauffeur-operated services. The California Public Utilities Commission explained that this is a prerequisite for an autonomous ride-hailing service. Right now, Tesla is allowed to test autonomous vehicles with a safety driver in California. Tesla needs additional permits from state agencies to operate the service without safety drivers or to charge customers. Could overseas laws be censoring American rights to free speech? That's what a House committee is trying to figure out. It sent subpoenas to 8 tech giants for more information on their communications with foreign governments. This includes Apple and Google, Alphabet, Meta, Amazon, Microsoft as well, TikTok, X, and video platform Rumble. House Judiciary Chairman Jim Jordan noted that laws in the UK, Europe, and Australia require U.S. platforms to remove content deemed harmful by foreign regulators. The concern is the restrictions could affect what content companies allow in the U.S. Air traffic at Reagan Washington National Airport will now come to a complete stop whenever President Trump flies nearby on the Marine One helicopter. That's according to the Federal Aviation Administration. The new policy rolled out in recent weeks requires commercial flights to circle in holding patterns or divert to other airports. It comes a month after the deadly mid-air collision between an Army helicopter and an American Airlines passenger jet over the Potomac River. The FAA said it will review the current policy once the National Transportation Safety Board completes its preliminary investigation. The Internal Revenue Service has released its list of tax scams people should watch out for in 2025. Topping the list are phishing scams, where fraudsters pose as legitimate organizations in the tax and financial community. Unsolicited texts or emails are sent to lure unsuspecting victims into handing over their personal or financial information. Another growing concern involves incorrect tax information on social media. The IRS warns this can mislead people into bogus tax avoidance strategies and sometimes result in identity theft. While many of these scams occur throughout the year, they peak during filing season. Tesla stock is down over 40% from its peak in December. Investors now asking Elon Musk to list 5 things he's done this past week. Here's the story.
Elon Musk's main source of wealth, Tesla stock, has plummeted over 40% from its peak in December. Europe sales dropping 45%, fewer than 10,000 cars this year compared to over 18,000 in January of last year. Double-digit percentage point drops among the European nations, while Chinese car makers SAIC and BYD surge. Surveys point to Musk's politics, backing Germany's conservative AfD party, feuding with UK Prime Minister Keir Starmer, and embracing President Trump. Yes! The hyped rollout of full self-driving in China has fizzled fast. 40% of reviews say it's still in the early stages, not at all close to literal full self-driving. In the US, Tesla has recalled over 370,000 cars for steering issues. Steering wheels would suddenly become stiffer whenever the cars came to a stop. Some also point to Musk's work at Doge, focusing on cutting bureaucracy instead of running Tesla. One Tesla investor posted on X, "Please share 5 things you did for Tesla shareholders this week. Or are you working remotely?" Musk's net worth also hit around $140 billion wiped out, though he's still by far the world's richest man.
Moscow is looking to skip any layovers as it works to restore relations with the U.S. At a bilateral meeting in Turkey to discuss diplomacy, Russia asked the U.S. to consider reopening its airspace to Russian aircraft to restore direct flights between the countries. Ukraine's allies, including the US, Canada, and the EU, banned Russian planes from their airspaces after Moscow invaded Ukraine in February 2022. Russia responded by closing its airspace to dozens of countries. The U.S. released a statement after the meeting that said the U.S. and Russia had constructive discussions, but did not mention this request. Fashion retailer Forever 21 is set to lay off more than 350 workers at its corporate office in Los Angeles, which it also plans to shut down. The layoffs are expected to start on April 21st. The job cuts and the closure of the LA headquarters come as store closures have been reported in multiple states. The company hasn't said how many locations it plans to shutter. This all comes as Forever 21 faces financial difficulties while it tries to compete with Chinese online discount retailers Shein and Temu. The chain's operating company says it's looking at a possible sale of Forever 21 as the company looks to stave off bankruptcy. Two of America's most popular game shows will be coming to a smart TV near you. Sony is shopping Wheel of Fortune and Jeopardy to streaming services. Roughly 7 million people watch each one on syndicated television, but popular TV shows have been moving to streaming services lately. The Super Bowl was streamed live to Tubi, and Hulu will carry the Academy Awards on Sunday. Broadcast TV will still have the edge for a few years, though whatever platform gets Wheel and Jeopardy won't have access to episodes until the day after they air on television. That's until 2028 when the broadcast syndication deals expire. Sony hopes to have a deal in place in April and for streaming to start in September. Right now, the shows together generate $175 million in advertising revenue. Congress has adopted a new resolution that will end the Biden administration's methane fee. The Senate passed the measure on Thursday. The fee was part of the Inflation Reduction Act. It required some oil and natural gas companies to pay a fee based on the amount of methane they release into the atmosphere. On Wednesday, the House passed a similar natural gas tax resolution to end the EPA's rule. President Trump is expected to sign the measure into law. The Federal Reserve's preferred inflation gauge cooled as expected in January, but consumer spending sank. The Personal Consumption Expenditures Price Index rose 2.5% in January from the year before. That's a slowdown from December's 2.6% annual rate. But the good news came with a red flag for the U.S. economy. Consumers pulled back their spending by the most in nearly 4 years. Spending fell 2.2% from the month from December. Adjusted for inflation, it sank 0.5%. That was a bigger drop, monthly drop that is, than economists had expected. And while today's data puts inflation close to the Fed's 2% target, the Fed itself indicated it could take until 2027 for inflation to stabilize at that level. Singer Alicia Keys is getting her own Barbie doll. Mattel has made a doll in Keys' likeness as part of its She Is the Music initiative. The toy giant has unveiled its 2025 Career of the Year Women in Music collection featuring Keys and her recording engineer. Dolls have She Is the Music t-shirts and are being auctioned off until March 2nd. Proceeds will benefit She Is the Music. Mattel previously released a Barbie doll for the late singer Alicia. Okay, on to markets. Wall Street ended higher on Friday today after a choppy trading session with Dell Technologies dipping and other tech stocks climbing. S&P 500 moved lower immediately after the clash before recovering and ending the day with a gain. Dell dropped after the PC maker forecast a decline in its adjusted gross margin for 2026 fiscal year. Peer HP Inc. fell after its quarterly profit forecast missed expectations. Gains in Nvidia, Apple, and Tesla lifted S&P 500. And with that, everything today on Business Matters.